Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel It Will Aspire, and today we are going to discuss the important topic in the history, that is the dissolution of monasteries. This was happened during the ruling period of King Henry VIII. The cause of dissolution of monasteries, then the growing of anti-clericalism. Then we have the supplication of beggars, that is the pamphlet which was issued by the public peoples to the king, to address the king. Then we see the dissolution of small monasteries, then leading to the big ones. Then how the monks have been affected by these dissolutions. How the monastic loot was made use of by the king. Then the monastic property have been brought to the people. Then finally we have the social effects of dissolution of monasteries. So all these things were happened during the ruling period of King Henry VIII. We want to discuss it in a very detailed manner about the King Henry VIII and his ruling period. Let me give you the another upcoming videos. We can see the life history or a biography of Henry VIII's ruling period. So before that, we discuss this topic, the dissolution of monasteries. And upcoming videos, let me upload you about the history or a biography details of Henry VIII. So now we go to the first slide, that is the cause for the dissolution of monasteries. Before that, we need to know when King Henry VIII became the head of Church of England. On account of Act of Supremacy, he has passed the Reformation Parliament in 1534. People were opposed to this measure, that is the Act of Supremacy. Most of the opposers were the monks who remained loyal to the Pope but not to the king. But the two great problems for the dissolution of monastery is, first, he need to get his marriage nullified, but the Pope refused to grant his request. That means he wants to divorce his wife and he wants to get married to then another woman. So this was refused by Pope. Then the second thing is, he need money to fund his military ambitions and support his government. So because monks, friars, nuns and most of the people, they were started supporting to the Pope. They were against the king. Only the few loyal peoples were there to support the king. So he need money. He was in need of money to build his own support, his own kingdom. He needs more money. So he needs a fund for military people to support his government. These are all the two main reasons why the monastery has been dissoluted. So in order to take revenge on Henry VIII, began to think of dissolving all the monasteries in the country. They thought King Henry was a very arrogant man. He wants to dissolve all the monasteries in the country. There should be no monk, there should be no friar, there should be no nun. They want to lead the life as all other people live. So he decided to take a revenge. So the most circumstance that was permitted him to take this drastic step was the immense wealth which the monastery possessed. Why Henry VIII wants to take such processions means he wants to take immense wealth which was possessed by the monasteries, which was possessed by the monks. They started corrupting the people. They started gaining more money from the people. So he wants to possess all their wealths in order to have a separate government to support him. So at the time of his period, he had inherited a great fortune of his father. Even his father, Henry VIII's father, Henry VII, has given many things for him. Great fortune was given by his father. But he was wasted all the money with a useless companion in the France. He wasted most of his money to build his military support in France. This was also became a failure and he lost all his father's fortune. So that's why he started the monasteries to be dissoluted and he wants to get all their wealth and money fund for his support to rebuild his kingdom again. Then next we can see the growing anti-clericalism. Growing anti-clericalism is responsible for the dissolution of monasteries. Throughout the 15th century, we can see monks did not practice any aesthetic ideals. Aesthetic ideals, they have not practiced anything about the God, which has done in earliest centuries. In earlier centuries, we can see in 13th and 14th century, peoples were believed in God. They have a religious. They used to support the monks, friars, nuns. Because there was a little bit of corruption was there, but not more corruption. But in 15th century, we come to know that monks did not practice any aesthetic ideals, which was done in the before centuries. So clergy became corrupt. They started pleasure loving of money, wealth and everything. So this slowly lead to growing anti-clericalism. At that time, in literature, we find two greatest writers which we cannot able to forget them. That is Geoffrey Chaucer and John Wycliffe. Geoffrey Chaucer was the first literary man who started writing, and we have their books and everything. Greatest man in literature. Who are pious, they all their writings were about the Christians. Had given timely warning through their words, through their writings. They warned the people not to do. In Canterbury Tales we find, in Canterbury Tales all the characters which was portrayed by the Geoffrey Chaucer was not a rich man or were not a very poor man. It is about a middle peoples, that is middle life peoples who lead their life, and he talks about everything, every character during that period. By reading Canterbury Tales, we can able to understand how the peoples were there in 15th century. So in the like that, John Wycliffe also written few works. So they are warned. Both the authors were warned through their writings or through their words to turn out to be nothing more than a cry. But all these have been just like a words for them. They have not never turned up. So these are all the things which helps to grow the anti-clericalism. They were not loyal to the God. They were not loyal to the church. So Henry VIII want to break the Church of England. Then we see the supplication of beggars. So few years before the dissolution of monastery, the wish of the public was indirectly expressed through the pamphlet. They have written an indirect pamphlet to the king, to address the king, the supplication of beggars. In the pamphlet they have written some suggestions. Was that the clergy, especially for the monks and friars, should be deprived for their wealth, for the benefits of their wealth, for the benefits of the king and kingdom. They have, before the dissolution of monasteries, all the public peoples have been decided and they have written a pamphlet to a king for the supplication of beggars. See, monks and friars have to, they have to teach them. If they give money, they have to buy it. They should not force them to get the wealth or force them to get the money. So the public already have given a suggestion to the king, especially for the monks and friars. Their wealth has to be possessed the king and the kingdom. This is the main thing in the dissolution of monastery. That is the supplication of beggars. Then we see king started dissolving the monasteries. He started with the small monasteries. As we see in the beginning, Act of Supremacy was passed in 1534. That was also against the king. King have passed it, but nobody has followed it. In 1536, he induced the parliament to pass the act of abolishing the monasteries. In 1534, he passed Act of Supremacy. In 1536, after 2 years, he forced the parliament to pass the act of abolishing the monasteries. He wanted to abolish all the monasteries in England. So he started suppressing first the smaller monasteries with worth less of £200 a year. The passing of Act, nearly 400 such monasteries were dissoluted. Dissoluting the small monasteries are little bit easy. Then the king ordered the dissolution of bigger monasteries too. And most of them, one after the another, surrendered without the least resistance. So first he begins with the small monasteries and everything was dissolved. Then he started possessing the bigger monasteries. That too, most of the bigger monasteries were surrendered themselves to the king. Some monasteries objected to the order of the king, but they were ruthlessly dealt. So he wants to give them a very good lesson for them. He, Abbot of Bloomsbury, was accused of treason and hanged in front of his own gatehouse. It was happened on 23rd March 1540. By seeing this, all the objected, the head of the monastery who were started against the words of Henry VIII, automatically they've surrendered everything in the feet of Henry VIII. So that was the last destruction of monasteries was completed in 1540. He had to intended to seize all the chantries and other religious institutions. He wants to destroy all the religious institutions. All other religious institutions. But he had died before that. Then the task was left to his young son, Edward VI. How Edward VI has become a king and who all the daughters and sons of Henry VIII, the wives of Henry VIII, as we all know as literature students, we know that Henry VIII got married 6 times. But in literature, we see only the 3 women that he married and how he divorced it and how he get another married and how he possessed all his wealth and everything. So I will post it in the next video about the history of the Henry VIII. Okay. So now coming to this dissolution of smaller monasteries, this is how the king possessed all the wealth from the monk and friar. He possessed everything. Then we see the monk affected by the dissolution. After surrendering everything to the king, after the dissolution of big and smaller monasteries, how the monks have been affected. There were about 5,000 monks, 1,600 friars, and 2,000 nuns were sent back into the world. That means they can lead in the world as all other people live. They should not preach. They should not have any their own small group they have to get married. So he sent them to the world. Even though all the things was possessed by them, Henry had given some pension schemes also from the government. They can receive 25 to 1,000 per annum. Those who received the maximum benefits were the title given to the head of the monasteries. Only the head of the monasteries can have a maximum benefits than the others. Then greater monasteries who had surrendered to the king without resistance. Some monasteries, they have not at all objected the king. They have listened the words of the king. They surrendered their wealth. So those people have a maximum benefits. So all the monks and friars under the age of 24 were absolved from the vows which they have taken on being a monk. Before being a monk, before they comes to the church and they have their different positions like a clergy, bishop, monk, friar, nun, they need to take a oath. I will be thinking about a God. I will be a religious man. I will be a good preacher. I will help a poor people. Like they have their own oaths to take. That is a vows to take. But everything was kept aside. And now they have to live the life as all others. They were free to get married. And they can seek employment elsewhere. This is what the dissolution of monasteries have teached for the monks and friars. They can lead their life like all other people. They can free to get married and they can get employed anywhere else. Then we see the monastic loot was made use of. The loot, that is, the King Henry VIII have possessed all the monks, friars, wealth and everything. So what he did? He did it three main reasons. First thing is, one part went to the royal coffers. Then few for new bishop price. Then the rest was given to the gentleman as a reward for their service. Then another important thing is king's share was used. These are all the things which he was looted by the monasteries. The things which he possessed from the monasteries by the monks were spent to the royal coffers for the new bishop hoppers. Then some things reward a service for the gentlemen. But the king's share was used to found Trinity College, Cambridge, and for building up the Royal Navy. To build up a Royal Navy, he has spent his share to found all this. This is the thing which this is only for this he possessed all his wealth. Then we can see people who brought the monastery property. The wealth which he possessed from the monasteries, from the monks, from the friars. Who brought that? All the property. And how it became a money. So we can see here, people of all ranks came forward to buy the monastic property. Many people. The biggest individual buyers were, at the time, was noblemen. Some squires, in the sense of local gentries, who control of local life to strengthen by the new estate. Though they have a little bit of land, they used to possess little bit more to have a new estates among them. In Tudor England meant power and prestige of landholders had a public duties thrust upon them by the king. This was an inducement for rich merchants, lawyers, doctors, all who brought the monastic land and started settling down as a country gentleman. The land which king possessed from the monks and friars were now brought in by noblemen. Noblemen, they can be a rich merchant, they can be a lawyer, they can be a doctor. So they have brought all the monastic lands and they started settling down in a countryside. So these people in reality owed their land property to the king. Evidently they became staunch supporters of new religious movement. This is the greatest plan of Henry VIII. He wanted to dissolute the Church of England and he wanted to bring a new religious movement during his period. That's why he dissoluted all the monasteries. Now the noblemen became a very good supporters of king to support his new religious movement. But possessions of land gave them a certain amount of spirit of independence. All the noblemen, merchants, lawyers, doctors and everybody, they have their own independence. And they refused to surrender their property when an attempt was made by Mary Tudor to revive the Roman Catholicism in England. Mary Tudor, he wants to destroy the monastery which was built by Henry VIII. The supporters of Henry VIII has to surrender all their property in the period of Mary Tudor. He wants to bring back the Church of England, that is Roman Catholicism in England. Only the one religion should be there. So she possessed all the land from the noblemen. See, in the before slide, in the dissolution of monasteries, we find that few things has been left by Henry VIII and it should be undertaken by his son Edward VI. Here we see the Mary Tudor. To know this connection, who is Mary Tudor and how Edward VI became a son of Henry VIII and how he became a king, to know this, we can have another video to see that. Then we come the end of the dissolution of monastery, that is the social effects of dissolution of monasteries. What are the social effects that was happened in dissolution of monasteries? It affects the poor people, first thing. Centuries together, they have a preachers, friars. They have both Franciscans and domain were common sight in the roads of England. But people can have some support from them. That means if a poor people suffers in Christianity, we can see some preachers from the church, they used to go to their homes to pray for their, to recover from the problems. So even today also it's there. So in 15th century, we see that all the preachers will be there in a common roads of England. Poor people can go and talk to them, they can have some advice, everything. But after the separation of all the monasteries and everything was disappeared completely. So the social life has been disturbed. And here we see that some Protestant preachers have been existent in some places. So in the loot which followed the confiscation of monasteries, their famous valuable libraries were broken, disappeared, and many irreplaceable manuscripts were lost. While the Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries, many things have been lost. They have looted everything, but few valuable things have been lost. There was a loss of learning and literature. some writings have been missing, manuscripts. They've broken a very valuable libraries and everything. So the poor people cannot able to get help from the monastery. Even though the way charity was dispensed, and most unorganized and indiscriminate monasteries were thrown out of the work. There were no charity. So these are all the problems which was affected by the poor people, and they became more acute, and it was obligated on the part of a government to decide more effective measures to tackle the situations. So the poor people kept the suggestions that they want the government to take a very effective measures for this. These are all the things which was happened in the dissolution of monasteries. By dissoluting the monastery, what are all the things that was taken place and how it was taken place? What are the two reasons that king wants to destroy the monasteries? Thank you guys. Thank you for watching it.